From the New York Times, top FEMA official is fired over payments for New York City migrant shelters. The Trump admin fired the Federal Emergency Management Agency's chief financial officer and 3 others after Elon Musk misleadingly claimed the agency had used disaster relief funds for migrant services. Let's play the game, New York Times. They say, blah, blah, blah. We get it. The firings capped a startling chain of events. Elon Musk claimed misleadingly that FEMA recently sent $59 million meant for disaster relief to New York City to pay for high-end hotels for migrants, and who called the expenditure unlawful. New York City officials raced to clarify that the federal money had been properly allocated by FEMA under Biden last year, adding that it was not a disaster relief grant and not been spent on luxury hotels. Nonetheless, just 2 hours after Mr. Musk's post, FEMA's acting director, Cameron Hamilton, announced the payments in question have all been suspended, even though most of the money had already been dispersed, and that personnel will be held accountable. By Tuesday morning, roughly 24 hours after Musk's post, the Trump administration had followed through on one part of its pledge. Tricia McLaughlin, a spokesman for the Department of Homeland Security, which oversees FEMA, said that the 4 employees had been terminated for circumventing leadership to unilaterally make egregious payments for luxury NYC hotels for migrants. Ms. McLaughlin did not specify how the employees had undermined leadership or how making payments previously appropriated by Congress amounted to unilateral conduct, but she said those fired included 2 program analysts, a grant specialist, and the agency's chief financial officer, Mary Comins, whom FEMA's website identifies as a longtime public servant. Under President Trump and Secretary Noem's leadership, DHS will not sit idly by and allow deep state activists to undermine the will and safety of the American people, McLaughlin said in her statement. The swift firings underscored Mr. Musk's growing influence, blah, 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 blah. Now, I'm just going to pause real quick and ask the New York Times a question. Where in this story do they explain how Musk was wrong other than just saying he was? Honest question. Please tell me what was really going on with this money. Now, they say Biden had already, what is it? They say under Biden, it had already been appropriated. Yet Trump signed an executive order freezing these payments. I know a judge has put a pause on the suspension and there's an appeal, an ongoing thing, but we do have a conflict here. What they said was that he's misleading them. It didn't go to high-end hotels, but they're not explaining to us how he was wrong, what actually happened. So I don't tolerate this from news organizations. Elon Musk made asserted this issue. I want to know why it was wrong, but this is what the media does. They say he was wrong, and I say, oh, really? Why? What was the truth? And they say nothing. They say nothing. So which is it?
It's debunked.
It's debunked. That's it.
Like everything.
Debunked. Well, I'm going to say this. I don't trust these people at all. And I think in all likelihood, they actually were trying to fund this. And the New York Times is simply claiming it's wrong because they're probably going to cite some technicality as to why it wasn't technically going to high-end hotels, because the hotels aren't really high-end because their steaks only cost $70, not $75. I don't know what they're actually talking about, and I'm not falling for it. So you can come to me and you can say, no, Tim, here, look. Here's what was really going on. The money wasn't disaster relief. It was meant to go to insert this or whatever. And that's fine. And you're allowed to do that. My point is, we don't trust you at all. The media plays these games. Elon Musk will say luxury hotels, and they'll say, these are only 4-star. They're not 5. That's not luxury. Luxury is 5 stars. And it's like a 4-star hotel with $50 steaks is luxury. And they'll say, no, it's an opinion. And then I'm supposed to just take their word for it. At any rate, it is big news to hear that one of the highest officials at FEMA has been nuked from their position over this payment. So this is absolutely fascinating. And I'm curious what you guys think about, the moves Elon Musk is making and if it's a good thing or not.
Well, also, just one quick point about the New York Times, not to get to sort of my issues, but I've been reading the New York Times for decades, particularly on the Middle East. What's that?
Condolences.
Condolences on the Middle East, on Israel, on the Palestinian conflict, on Iran. And it's not shocking to me at all, after reading the New York Times for decades on something I know a lot about, to find the New York Times continuing to mislead the American people about all of these issues. I mean, it should have been a red flag a long time ago that this is not news reporting. There are ideological agendas at work here. There are editors who have ideological agendas and find reporters to fit the story. And for those of us who support what Elon Musk is doing, for those of your audience who voted for President Trump, you should not be surprised that the New York Times has a deep ideological hostility against the president, against Elon Musk, and against Republicans. And every story you should read with a skeptical eye.
Let me do this for you guys, because to make my point, often I'll use CNN and the New York Times to make that point. Here's ABC7. This is your typical corporate press news outlet, outright saying Department of Government Efficiency head Elon Musk on Monday sounded the alarm over a $59 million payment by FEMA to house migrants in New York City. They go on to say that the finding comes as Doge continues to uncover controversies of taxpayer dollars. So there's numerous outlets asserting this as true, and the New York Times just simply said it was false and then didn't tell us why it was false. So you pick. That's the world we live in right now. I'm going to tell you what I pick. I pick that Elon is largely correct. USAID has been funding garbage. We've exposed a lot of that garbage. Donald Trump was elected specifically to go after waste, fraud, and abuse, among other things. So in the New York Times, which has lied numerous times about Donald Trump and actively worked to stop him from getting elected, comes out and says Elon Musk is lying, I'll be like, oh, wow, the New York Times is lying.
That's the knee-jerk reaction that only makes sense. You know, the New York Times has been, I mean, look, it's been garbage since the Soviet Union, since they were cheerleading the Soviet Union in the, 20s was when Durante was writing, I think it was, you know, and just straight up lying for ideological purposes. So to believe the New York Times is to intentionally accept the propaganda, you know.
Remember when I have this story. Actually, let me pull up the story. This from Yahoo. It was an interesting point. Telegraph wrote, FEMA officials sacked over $59 million payments for migrant hotels. Oh, that's weird that it's being reported as fact by the Telegraph and by ABC. But they make an interesting point. They say in November, a FEMA official was suspended after allegedly ordering disaster relief workers to avoid homes owned by Trump supporters as they worked to clear devastation wreaked on Florida by Hurricane Milton. Remember when the media lied about that and said it wasn't happening? Yes. Then you ended up with an interview where the woman said, well, I mean, if someone feels uneasy and they don't want to go to that house, you know, they can't.
That's ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. I can't believe that they actually make that argument. Like, oh, well, you know, they're literally, it was the people on the ground. Like, come on. I
their house is underwater and they feel unsafe going there to try to help out a fellow American.
The Trump sign.
It's insane.
It's insane.
But goes.
Well, I think that these kind of things they happen so regularly, and the bias from the media is, look, in the early aughts, it was like, oh, well, you know, there is a left-wing bias in the media. It's because they're based in cities and the people live in cities, and so they have city kind of mindsets, and the difference isn't really intentional because you wanted to believe that you weren't being propagandized, and that honestly you wanted to believe that people of the opposing political opinions weren't actually being targeted and attacked. But then when Barack Obama had the IRS scandal, the Lois Lerner scandal, when they were targeting conservatives, and then every single legacy media outlet went all in on Donald Trump's a Nazi, and they all were doing the very fine people hoax and all that stuff. It's not only did it become undeniable, it became common knowledge, but they were doing the whole, like Solzhenitsyn said, like, they're lying. We know they're lying. And they know that we know we're lying. And yet they keep lying. And now with the USAID stuff and all the Doge uncoveries, we know that they were being paid. And I know there are people that are going to say, oh, well, they weren't being paid. They weren't getting, just getting free money. They were buying subscriptions and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But they were still making tons of money off of the government.
Well, where do you think all this goes? Do you think Elon is going to stop anytime soon? I hear the rumor going around now that they're just going to gut all the departments, all the agencies.
Look, I don't know how far Elon's going to go. I'm certainly a huge supporter of this kind of accountability. But I was thinking, just as you guys were speaking about the media, and I hate to invoke my age, but I'm old enough to remember what the media used to be like and what the media is today. And I think what saddens me is there's so much disinformation. There's so much fake news that I think young people have lost all trust in the media. And I think to be skeptical today, to be a critical thinker today, is what will make America great. What I worry about is because we've lost so much faith in mainstream media and their reporting and their ideological agendas, is that it is now so easy to be influenced by conspiracy theories, to go down rabbit holes, to start to accept things that that I don't believe anybody. I don't believe anything. Our government is evil. And from our government is evil to America is evil is not a far leap.
Nope.
So for that reason, I mean, great to have shows like this one. I mean, the explosion of social media, of podcasts, of opportunities for people to go and get another perspective. It's no longer the days of Walter Cronkite, where Walter Cronkite declared one thing, and that was the universal truth.
Yep.
And it's certainly not the days of where now the New York Times, the paper of record, it's no longer the paper of record because I think it has delegitimized itself.
I agree completely.
As the Washington Post. I think the Washington Post is even a more egregious example of this than the New York Times. Democracy dies in the darkness. Well, so do subscribers when you're not reporting the truth.
Yeah.
But I do worry about where this is taking us as a nation, where we no longer believe anything we hear. And I think it's very easy to go from that to we no longer have faith in our own country.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.